I want $200,000, but I won't tell my husband. Plus updates. Original post. I, 26 female, and my husband, 26 male, have been married for almost 2 years. For the past year, I've been the breadwinner, and I'm not okay with this. Hubby lost his job after some budget cuts, and since then, he's been doing nothing but play video games. At first, he went to interviews, but that stopped after 2 months. And no, he isn't doing any chores either. We used to split chores 50-50, but now he isn't even doing his 50%. So, I'm financially supporting both of us while also doing 100% of the chores. I've discussed this with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and they had a talk with him. Father-in-law even got him a couple interviews that, by the way, he missed because he was playing and he forgot to go. 2 weeks ago, father-in-law called him and scolded him. Father-in-law told him he raised him better than to leech off me and not even help with household chores. He told him he needs to get his act together and start doing his chores and look for a job because a marriage is 50-50, and right now I'm doing 100% of everything. He ended the call by telling him he was very disappointed. My husband always had this thing about making his dad proud, so he started looking for a job and even went on 2 interviews. Now, last week, I went on a trip with some friends and we went to a casino where I won $200,000. I haven't told my husband, and I don't know if I will. I'm afraid if I do, he will go back to doing nothing, excusing that as we don't need money, and I could hire someone for the housework. Before you ask, our finances are separate and he doesn't have access to my bank account, so I don't think he will find out. I will also like to add that I want to use some of the money to pay my student loans. What's left after that, I want to put them in savings. We are discussing the possibility of having kids, and if we decide to expand our family, I want my kids to have a college fund. But I'm also reconsidering having kids with a man that needs to be scolded by his parents in order for him to do his part in the relationship. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your finances aside, send your husband to therapy. He's horribly depressed. This is what I'm thinking. All these people are saying he's a deadbeat lazy bum, but she said he used to work and contribute to the household evenly. Also, that he thrives to make his dad proud. It sounds more like depression than this just being who he is. Exactly why I said this. If it were his personality, this would have always been the case, but the fact that there's such a big change is a huge tell. Honestly, I'm not really sure why people are telling you to baby your husband. If he has a problem, he needs to address it. I've been in the exact same situation, and it nearly freaking killed me, and he didn't give a hoot. All the attraction to him went out the window because he refused to help himself. A swift dose of reality will do the trick for most people. These are people, however, who, like OP's significant other, would rather leech off friends and family like a succubus rather than put in their fair share. Classic Reddit. Most people going straight to divorce him instead of advising to get him some therapy or psychological help. He might be depressed after losing his job, and I can say from experience that having your parents scold you might not be enough to get you to do better. Freaking hell. Imagine if every single relationship problem was resolved with a breakup. Reddit is full of virgins and people who've never been in a relationship. They have no idea what they're talking about. Now for the first update. I posted this in another sub, and someone made question if he was really laid off because of budget cuts or if that's a lie. So, I talked with one of his former colleagues and he told a different story. According to him, my husband left because I made enough to support both of us, so he didn't need to work. I went home but he was playing as usual, so I called for him. I think he forgot his door was open because I heard him tell his gaming buddy, "My witch is home." I lost it at that. I don't know how I managed to stay composed, but a lot of people pointed out that he may be depressed, so I tried to talk to him. This is how it went. Me, I'm very unhappy with how things are right now. I work to support both of us, and I'm also doing all the household chores. It's not fair. You have a gaming problem. I think you should go to therapy and maybe we can try couples counseling too. Him, I don't see the issue. I like games. So what? Me, okay. Have you found a job yet? Him, no. Me, I know you weren't fired. Why did you quit? Him, I didn't. After an hour, he finally admitted that he doesn't want to work, and he never looked for jobs either. All the interviews he went to were actually outings with friends. He doesn't want to work because we don't need the money. So I said, okay, I'm fine with being the sole provider, but then he needs to do the chores. He said no, that he would rather play games. So I handed him the divorce papers. He said I'm overreacting and that I would still work and do all chores if I was alone. So why can't I just do it? We got into a fight where I did end up telling him about the money. His reaction was exactly the one I was afraid of. He suggested getting a maid. So I'm currently staying with my sister. I'm not backing up with a divorce. And for those of you that are worried, he has no right over the money. We have a prenup, so after the divorce, each leaves with what's in our names. So he won't see $1. My lawyer reassured me of that. Second update. Hubby is crying, begging me to reconsider. He's promising to get a job and lay off on gaming. I don't know if I should laugh or cry, but damn, I don't believe anything he says. He also apologized for calling me a witch and swears he'll do all house chores and get a full-time job. It's kind of pathetic, but nonetheless, if divorce is the only way to get him to participate, I don't want to always need to print papers every time he isn't doing anything. I told him I'm not going to reconsider, because his actions showed me he isn't someone that I can count on. I want a family, not slavery. I want to be a mother, but for that, I need a partner that I can count on if I need someone to pick up where I slack. Safe to say, he left crying saying I don't love him and that no one will want me. Next story. My wife died 11 months ago and our lives are better. Yes, I am a monster for saying this. And yes, we have a young child together. About 11 months ago, my wife was killed in an auto accident that was not her fault. I won't give specifics for fear of being identified. My wife's mental health had steadily declined over the past 6 to 7 years. She had become a compulsive shopper, hoarder, depression, anxiety, verbally abusive to me, gaslighting, etc. This was not who I dated and married. Yes, I still loved her. When her mental health was great, best family unit in the world. But when she spiraled, it was just nasty the way she would treat us. Yes, she was in therapy and yes, she had medication. She was diagnosed as bipolar. We discovered suppressed childhood trauma in a therapy session. Not the sexual kind, but horrible parents. Recalling lack of food, but money for smokes. Living in a hotel for nearly a year. No Christmas presents. Parents fighting physically in front of her, etc. She had suppressed this and recreated different memories. The last 4 years were hell. Never knowing how she would be in the morning. Seeing her become hostile over me sneezing too loud. Or our daughter flushing the toilet during her shows. I felt like a prisoner. And my child did her best to understand that mommy's brain doesn't work right. When I got a call that I needed to come to the hospital, I honestly thought she tried to end herself, and was hoping she did. When I got to the hospital, time froze. The doctor and the nurse brought me to a room. They said she died of blunt force trauma. I cried, but it was a cry of relief. When my mom brought my daughter home, she cried too. But I think for the same reason I did. Today, I am in a better place. And so is my child. We have dinners with no yelling. We visit family and friends without getting text accusing me of cheating. My child is not getting yelled at for not understanding her homework. Hell, she still gives me a hug and kiss when I drop her off at school. I have exited therapy, however, my daughter said she still wants to go, so she does. My daughter wants to know about her mom before her mental health issues. And that is how she will be remembered. She was given a proper burial buried next to her grandpa, and we visit the grave about once a week. We got a decent settlement for the accident. Paid off our home, and I put the rest in trust for when the kid turns 18. I recently started dating a friend. It's so weird. I'm not used to normal dates or having another adult ask me how my day was. She made me breakfast, and I forgot what it was like to have someone care for me. Thank you for reading. I just came here to say that you're not a monster. It's hard seeing someone you love go through something like this. My mother is bipolar, and I have thoughts sometimes that definitely scare me. I'm glad you're happy now and can finally live the life you wanted. Sounds like wife was very bad and especially alarming that she was acting that way towards the child as well. From what I can see, she wasn't taking therapy/medication and other activities close enough to action. And the mistreatment started ramping up basically after they had a child together. Repeated false accusation of cheating, flying off the handle at minor inconveniences like they're horrendous, etc. are unacceptable, especially towards a child, and when showing no signs of stopping or the perp addressing them. At that stage of boundaries being consistently ignored or impossible to set, relationship has to end for the safety of the kid and their upbringing. Even without a kid, a relationship like that is rotten and must end. Victim doesn't deserve to be treated this way. Exposure and victimhood to DV severely harms children. And OP, if you haven't already, get your kid DV counseling/therapy. Otherwise, your kid is at risk of developing severe issues and mental illness. People like your wife are rarely just horrible with no trauma or illness of their own. There's almost always some underlying thing, like OP's wife's case, that influences it. But as difficult as it is, the behavior cannot remain in a relationship, especially if it's continuously escalating, and there's a refusal by that person to address the root causes and recognize what they're doing. At that mark, no one benefits at all from the relationship. The person's actions will get worse, and root trauma will be coped with by hurting others. Victim is traumatized by repeatedly being attacked, and child is traumatized to dangerous extents. I think you need to put the house in a trust for her too, since it was paid off with money you got for the settlement. Just in case you marry someone and anything happens to you, she will have rights to your house. I had not thought of that. Good idea. Also, if you haven't already, update your will now. That broke my heart to read, pal. Glad you're doing good now. I'm not asking to be an a-hole, but why couldn't you have left her? Because I loved her mainly. But also, I could not afford a divorce. She would have won alimony, and due to my work schedule, most likely full custody, making me a weekend dad. Last story. I have imaginary dates with my late husband every week. I just wanted to let this out. I've never told anyone about this, and I've never used Reddit before, so bear with me. I'm a 36-year-old woman, and I lost my husband 11 years ago. Every Saturday night, we would go out on date. We started when we were 16 and he got his license. Every single week until we were 25 and he was taken from me. It was really, really hard for me. I had more than a few grippy sock vacations. I broke everything in my home out of sadness. Fortunately, it was after I moved a lot of his things to our bedroom, so nothing of his was harmed. I was in grief counseling for 4 years, until they finally gave me off to another therapist who I see twice a week. All I ever talk about is how much I miss my husband. The only thing that brings me happiness is my loyalty to him. It's something I'm very, very proud of. Even though he's gone, I still wear my rings, and I've stayed 100% faithful to him, and I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of my life. It makes me happy when I think about it. One day, when I see him in heaven, I'll be able to tell him I stayed faithful to him, and I'm still his wife forever. I have his senior portrait on my bedside along with his ashes. It's the first and last thing I see every day. One thing that helps me cope with it is kind of weird. I have imaginary date nights with him. I put on his favorite dress, I'll put on my makeup and do my hair. I cook one of his favorite meals. I make both of us a plate and I just sit there and eat. And I pretend he's across from me and we're eating together. Then I pour both of us a glass of champagne. I've always hated the taste, and before he passed, I was 100% sober my entire life. But it makes me feel like I'm connected to him when I drink it, as he loved champagne. I'll pretend he's drinking it too and we'll get a little tipsy together. Then I'll take him upstairs and go into the bathroom and put on some lingerie for him. Then he watches me take it off, and then I go into the bottom of my drawer. And I have a toy that's the same size as his member, and I use it and pretend it's him and we're being intimate. I moan his name really loud when I do it too. Then the next morning I wake up and I clean everything up. I clean up his food that obviously was never touched, and his full glass of champagne, and I go about my day. I know it seems crazy, but it's something that brings me joy. It makes me happy. And please don't try to convince me to not stay loyal to my husband. Staying loyal to him brings me true happiness. And if you have a problem with that, please just keep that to yourself. I'm sorry. I feel really sad reading this. Love has such patience, and that's why love is beautiful and sad at the same time. Opie, do whatever makes you happy. No one is gonna judge you. You live your life the way you want it. If you want to have dates with the love of your life, do it. If you want to love him until the last day of your life, love him as much as you want. At my first big kid job, I worked closely with a bookkeeper, a lovely woman, and a great painter whom I adored. Her husband had died many years before our meeting, and while she spoke of him often enough, she only ever spoke of his death once in the time we knew each other. I don't remember the conversation exactly. I just remember her saying that he had been sick for a while there, but now he's just invisible. That struck me, and so did the way she said it. Like his death was just an aesthetic side effect of an otherwise benign condition. One they laughed about together, like a little inside joke between them. She didn't elaborate beyond that, and she didn't need to. It was plain on her face that the love they shared was just as alive in that moment as it was before he up and turned invisible on her. I'll never know the story of their relationship, or how she arrived at her perspective on the loss she had suffered. But I do know that whenever I'm faced with loss or grief, I think about Mary and her invisible husband, and I can't help but smile. I think connections between people have a much longer shelf life than people themselves. And with that in mind, I hope you continue to enjoy the heck out of your date nights. My husband died a year ago, and in my dreams when he's there, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like he's actually there. We are always talking about something. We did a lot of that. It feels like I should be able to touch him, but I can't. All those weird things that make a dream are never there when he is. I wake up from the dream and it feels like he's probably still there. I just can't see him anymore. This is why I'm scared of getting too attached. This is just so sad and heartbreaking. Hey dude, don't let it stop you from forming close and beautiful connections in your life. It can sometimes hurt to love something/someone so deeply, but the rewards outweigh it, and ultimately nothing is permanent. I'm more scared of never forming such connections. How fortunate are we to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard? Am I the a-hole for demanding my fiancé pay me back for selling my train collection? I, 28 female, lived with my aunt and uncle as my parents could not raise me. My uncle started collecting trains as a hobby when he was working as an engineer. I took a huge interest in them as a child and teenager. My uncle gave me his entire train collection when he became sick. When I turned 19, I moved out and found a nice apartment near my college, and I brought the collection with me. Some of my friends thought it was cool, others find it weird. I met my boyfriend at college, and he moved in with me after we graduated. We got engaged last year and are currently struggling with debt, student loans, and a wedding. My fiancé asked if we could have an expert come into the apartment and price the train collection. I was against the idea and told him that I would not sell the collection as it was a large memory of my uncle. My best friend got engaged this past weekend, and a few of us went to celebrate at our parents' lake house. I was gone for 2 nights, and when I returned, the train collection was completely gone. My fiancé came running over saying that a collector came and gave him a decent price for the set. I started crying and yelling at him that he destroyed my trust and told him to leave the apartment. He left without protest and has been staying with his parents. I told him that he had to pay me back all the money and had threatened to sue him as well. His parents are trying to argue that he was only doing what was best for the both of us. Am I the a-hole for demanding my fiancé pay me back for selling my train collection? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your fiancé stole and sold a train collection without your consent. Please go back to that collector and explain the situation. File a police report and sue your fiancé for grand theft. And OP, please break up with him because he completely betrayed your trust. You cannot get married to someone who has no respect for you. What an awful man. File a police report. Your ex committed a crime, and depending on the value, a very serious crime. Provide a police report to the collector so they clearly understand they purchased stolen goods. Also, that collector could be shady too. He purchased it likely knowing your ex didn't really own it. Yes, it's a stretch to assume the collector knew the ex didn't have permission to sell them. I made that assumption thinking that the ex didn't know anything about the trains and possibly stated they were his girlfriend's trains. Not a hole, but you can report that collection as stolen, so you could potentially get it all back. The sale of stolen goods is not legal. I would act fast though, checking with police, because depending on that collector who bought it, they might be selling off some of the pieces and then it might be impossible to get them all back. And I'm giving you the money got from selling your stuff isn't even an apology. I wouldn't act like it was. The money is yours, completely yours, and probably is worth way less than the actual collection. Do not touch that money though. Report the whole thing as stolen. If you get the money, it could be argued you knew and benefited from the sale. And this is a pretty good insight for how he will act during your marriage. Going behind your back to make what should be joint decisions after you already said no. Keeping that money as his own. Saying that he knows best to do what's good for both of you without taking your opinion into account. Yes, OP, please don't take the money and file a police report. Not stay home. Demand to give you the name of the collector so you can contact them and let them know the collection was stolen and they need to return it. Let them know they will get their money back. Tell him if he doesn't give them money and contact information for the collector, you will involve the police. Do the same if the collector refuses to return them. Tell them they are in possession of stolen property, and you will involve the police if necessary. This is not a man you want to marry, as painful as it is. He violated your trust, stole from you, and took away a family heirloom. He has no respect for you or your feelings. You need to end a relationship before he does something worse. No threats. Just involve the police. Your boyfriend stole and sold stolen goods. Go get your stuff back and put him in jail. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for causing a scene at my sister's wedding after I found out she tricked me into showing up without my boyfriend? Hi, I, female 30, have been with my boyfriend Ryan for over 5 years. I haven't told anyone yet, but I'm pregnant. It wasn't planned, but we decided to keep it. My family and Ryan have a good relationship, although they tend to have disagreements once in a while. My older sister's wedding was a week ago. When I received my invitation, I read that +1 aren't allowed. It's either engaged or married partners. I didn't know what to feel about this, and I tried contacting my sister about this rule and see if she could make Ryan an exception. But she told me it's a rule that everyone had to follow, and said she could talk to Ryan. Ryan said I should not miss my sister's wedding because of him and urged me to go. I felt guilty, but decided to go anyway. When I showed up, I noticed guests had brought +1s. I'm talking about family members that are neither engaged nor married. My 3 female cousins brought their jokester boyfriends, and even my aunts brought a friend from work. I was confused and angry. I walked up to my sister and loudly demanded that she explain why I wasn't allowed to bring my boyfriend while everyone else was. She and her husband tried to get me to quiet down, but it was too late because there were people standing watching us argue. My sister said I was disrupting the wedding over nothing, and that I shouldn't make a big deal over it. But it was a big deal for me because Ryan was excluded like he was a stranger, while my cousin's boyfriends weren't. Mom and Aunt tried getting me to sit down, but I told my sister that Ryan is and will always be family, and she not only disrespected him by excluding him, but disrespected me too and our relationship as well. Not only that, but I told her he's the father of my child, which had a family instantly guessed that I was pregnant. I left after the argument, and my family berated me later about making a scene at my sister's wedding and ruining everything she worked for. They also said that it was low of me to indirectly announce my pregnancy like that and try to add insult to injury. My sister and her husband are expecting an apology now, but in response, I demanded an apology for Ryan before we even talk. Ryan is hurt, but says I should have just stayed quiet or left. He said he doesn't want to be the reason my relationship with my sister gets ruined as well as my family, but my family think I'm the one who messed up. Am I the a-hole? Info. Please expand on these disagreements between your partner and your family. It feels like you're purposely leaving out or downplaying important parts of the story. That could potentially explain exactly why your sister didn't want him at her wedding, and why every single family member involved in planning the wedding played along with her lie about no +1s. When you leave out context, you automatically look like the one in the wrong. The fact that Ryan handled this exclusion with maturity and encouraged Opie to go without him indicates he's likely okay. Sister is the a-hole. She got exactly what she deserved. Like I said, they have a number of disagreements. My family always make comments about his occupation, which is in law enforcement. He's a cop. Ryan always takes those comments as a joke and tries to ignore them. But my sister is mainly the one with heavy dislike towards him. Why are you avoiding saying what the full issues between them are? Do you feel like some of your family's concerns about your partner might be valid? Why are you trying to retrofit the situation to your biases? You've got the information you asked for and still want to push for more dirt. She was tricked. He supported her and attempted to de-escalate tensions in the past. Not stay home on this and even the pregnancy announcement in the heat of the moment. Not stay home. This is the only time I will say that announcing a pregnancy at someone else's event is okay. She lied. She got caught. To hell with decorum. Sometimes you need to slap back. Yep, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Totally unrelated to this thread, but just wanted to say I really needed to hear this today. Thank you, internet stranger. What your sister did was cruel. It was a giant middle finger to you and Ryan. If her wedding was ruined, it was because of her own petty behavior. She and other family members were angry at you or putting appearances before family. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go to my brother's wedding because of what the bride did to me? I've always been close to all three of my siblings. My oldest brother, Colin, pretty much raised us due to serious neglect and parentification. I realize what a sacrifice that is, and that he should not have been doing all he did. We are all no contact with our mother. Colin is engaged to Darcy. Our mom briefly dated Darcy's dad. Very briefly. We were never anything close to step-siblings, and Colin was living at college at the time. Darcy was the most popular girl at school, and she could be really mean. I know her family was crazy toxic, and she was lashing out, but still no excuses to bully. Darcy didn't like that her dad was dating a woman with kids. Darcy and I got into a verbal argument once because we were home alone at her dad's house, and she announced my family's trashy, social climbers, and my mom's cheap. We got into it and said some mean stuff. Apparently, it hurt Darcy's feelings, so her and her friends set up a prank at school and had a popular boy ask me to prom, and a few days before told me it was a joke. Colin was pissed, but a few hours away at college. My other brother did try to avenge me, which led to our mom and her dad breaking up. But Darcy's dad already had his next girlfriend lined up, so that was inevitable. Colin and Darcy reconnected years later and have been together for 3 years, and the wedding is in May. I know it might sound petty, but I was a shy, insecure girl, and what she did gutted me. Darcy has apologized. Colin thinks I should forgive her because she was a kid, and she was acting how her dysfunctional parents taught her to act and has since grown up. I told him I was sorry, but I just couldn't go. To be honest, it brings up a lot of my insecurities, and I don't want to see her get this huge princessy wedding with everyone fawning over her. My sister thinks I should let it go. My other brother loves Darcy and treats her like a sister. Darcy recently sent me a text about she's sorry, but I'm being awful to Colin, and how he had no childhood because he was trying to protect me from our insane mother, and how we shouldn't have been walking to the store at 12 to make sure I could eat. And after all of that, I owe him this. I've yet to reply, and I keep going back and forth about if I'm being an a-hole or not. Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. The fact that Darcy sent you this text to guilt you shows she's still a cold bully. You do not need to go if you think it will traumatize you further. This, the only and only sign that people are sorry and wants forgiveness, is if they are willing to take on the responsibility/consequence of their actions. She just wants absolution, which means just wants to sweep everything under the rug. Right? Like, or only you are the a-hole ignoring the guilt-tripping text. She really hasn't matured that much if she's trying to manipulate you to go to the wedding. Does your brother know that she sent that text? Not the a-hole. Whether you go to the wedding and whether you decide to forgive her are both totally up to you, and any decision you make would be perfectly valid. But you might want to consider how much you're willing to let her past actions impede having a close relationship with your brother, now and in the future. This. I get your reasons for avoiding Darcy, but be cautioned that you may lose your brother in the process, since she seems pretty collected at painting you as a villain in the story. Also, attending the wedding and forgiving her are two totally different things. Just because you attend a wedding for your brother's sake doesn't mean you are welcoming her with open arms into the family. They've been together for 3 years. Why haven't you already hammered out these issues before now? Before a wedding was even in the picture? Are you not that close with your brother anymore? I understand that. With world events, lots of people aren't as close as they used to be, or as close as they would have been. But 3 years ago, did you not pull him to the side and go, "Bro, your new girlfriend did this horrible thing to me, and I don't think I can get past it even for your sake"? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my mom out of my wedding because she predicted our divorce? My mom and I used to have a good relationship, but she doesn't really mesh with my new wife, so she pulled away a lot. I did stand up for my wife when there was an issue, not too often, but my mom seems okay with the distance, and says she just feels weird around us and it's probably best not to push it. This seems like a weird thing for a mother to say, but she's always been kind of emotionally immature. My mom was of course invited to my wedding. She had no part in the planning or anything because their taste could not be more polar opposite. and I really hadn't seen her in a while due to being busy. She was nice and polite and everything went smooth. But someone overheard my mom's husband make a joke that he gives us 2 years. And my mom responded that she felt we would divorce or that our relationship would just suck because we fed each other cake with forks. My mom admitted it was just her pet's peeve, which is why I might be overreacting. But she said she hates when couples do that, and it seemed so cold and robotic. I did confront my mom, and she laughed and asked if we had people spying on her. I said a friend of my wife's overheard and let me know so I could handle it. It asked why she would joke like that. My mom said she was just talking to a few people, and it might be irrational, but everyone has those little rational things, and she thinks feeding with a fork just looks so bad and cold. I told her she needed to leave because she disrespected the wedding. She said okay and left without an issue, but I did try to communicate a week later and she only gives one-word answers. And other family members have said I'm an a-hole. Is there another way to eat cake that I'm not aware of? I think a lot of couples do it with their hands when they feed it to their new spouse. The mother thought the fork was less personal contact. Sometimes they shove it right into the spouse's face, usually with great general hilarity from the drunks at the reception. I find that in bad taste, so be your bad self and use a fork. What the heck? Why is that friend trying to stir the pot? And why are you letting her? It wasn't quite poor taste for your mother to make that comment. It was in poor taste for that friend to approach the groom and bride during the wedding and try to start drama. The friend should have shut up until after the wedding, and preferably after the honeymoon. This conversation should not have taken place during the wedding, considering it was a single comment and it wasn't being disruptive, even if it was disrespectful on her and her husband's part. She sucks, her husband sucks. The friend does not have the ability to evaluate the situation and know that certain things are better off mentioned at a later date. How does the groom suck for not wanting people shutting on his relation on his wedding day? If anyone in my wedding was speaking loud enough that other people could hear about my future divorce on my wedding day, I'd want them to leave too. It's rude and straight up disrespectful. Not stay home. It's an incredibly poor taste to talk about a couple's relationship failing at their wedding to other guests. She's entitled to her opinion and private conversation with her husband, but talking to a few people at your wedding? That is beyond rude. Not stay home. She expressed her hope your relationship would have an unpleasant end at your own wedding. She played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. She's just upset she got caught, so she's hiding under a joke. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom the exact moment I lost all love and respect for her? I, 21 male, live with my older sister, 23, and my 2 younger sisters, 17 and 15. My older sister currently has legal custody over our 2 younger sisters, and at one point even had legal custody over me when I was still a minor. She basically gained custody of us all when she was 19 because our mom was an addict. My mom is currently going through end-stage kidney failure, assumingly because all of those years of not taking care of herself caught up to her. When she first started going to dialysis about 5 months ago, she put me down as her emergency contact. And at first, I just sucked it up and dealt with it because she doesn't have anyone else in this part of the country. And my older sister doesn't talk to her for reasons you can't imagine. However, yesterday when the clinic contacted me and I had to pick her up, I informed her that she needed to put someone else down because I wouldn't be answering those calls anymore, after she had her family members leave threatening messages to my older sister. This angered her, and she started going on about why I didn't love her anymore and when I stopped loving her. So I told her the exact moment I stopped loving her and respecting her was when I was 13. I just entered high school. I was big into football and the coach at the time was brutal. He was making us practice 2 times a day, at 5 a.m. and after school. I told her how I woke up one morning, and she passed out on the couch off of whatever substance she was using at the time, and my older sister, only 15 at the time, was freaking out because we had no food. We never had any food. She was freaking out thinking I was going to pass out from all of that practice and barely eating. I tried to assure her that I would be fine, but she went into that kitchen, grabbed the only things we had, which were 2-day-old almost burnt rice, salt, a can of green beans, and half a chicken breast, and made me and our siblings an entire fried rice meal. She made sure I ate that morning, and I ate that meal on my way to practice crying. She had to stay home from school that day like she did most days, to send younger sister off to school and to be there to pick them up. When I got home from school that day, my sister was in the kitchen cooking dinner, and there were some groceries in the fridge that she brought with the money that she got from selling her rings that our grandma gave her to some sketchy guy that used to hang out at the convenience store, all while Mom remained high and passed out. I told her that's when all love and respect for her vanished. She cried and told me that I was evil, that I'm having a moral conflict because I'm wondering if I should have been softer with her. Am I the a-hole? Info, my dad passed away of an overdose when I was 8, so he was really no better than my mom. Not the a-hole. You aren't evil. Your mother's neglect was. I wouldn't be answering those calls anymore after she had her family members leave threatening messages to my older sister. Time to go no contact with your mother and these family members. Good luck. Also, OP, I know there is some pressure because she's dying, but she left your life and role as a parent a long time ago. Do not feel guilt of any sort for cutting contact at this time. You can continue to make peace with what role she played in your life on your own. You do not need to subject yourself to more of it. Release yourself from that responsibility. Agreed. If she wants you to be at her deathbed but she never apologizes, don't go. You're letting her trample all over you one last time in her own way. You're letting them get their say on the way out without ever showing contrition. Someone here recommended the book Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and it helped me. Try it. You have a lot of resentment. Write a letter to your mom and your dad if he's around, with all your feelings in it, and then burn it for catharsis. As you watch the flames, focus on letting go of that hurt and resentment. Thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely look into getting that book. As for our dad, he passed away of an overdose when I was 8. In this vein, I've found specific support groups online to be really helpful. General subs like this are a good gut check, but for the really specific stuff and having a safe place to voice your feelings, as a good community will have extremely no-nonsense and active mods, is huge. Just do a vibe check first. Some keywords would be adult children of addicts, and definitely read up on sidebars/intros to see if a particular place resonates with you and your experiences. Everyone's situation is a little different, and that kind of neglect will impact people in different ways even within the same family. Find a group that offers the support that you need. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling someone they're selfish for asking a 22-year-old to become a child's guardian? My 22 female boyfriend Malcolm 22 male has a half-sister Elena 12 female. They have the same dad, and he's not involved in their lives. Their moms became close friends and they were raised seeing one another, but Malcolm's mom moved abroad a couple of years ago. Elena's mom, Sandra, was diagnosed with cancer last year. She went through treatment, but it's been determined that there's nothing they can do but make her comfortable and Sandra will pass sometime this year. She has no family, so Malcolm has spent a lot of time helping care for Elena, driving her to school, making the meals, etc. Recently, Malcolm sat me down. He said that Sandra asked to speak to him. She said she understood if the answer was no, but asked for him to take on custody of Elena, sooner rather than later. That way, she could adjust to him being her guardian before she passes. Malcolm would move in with them. Sandra had a sizable life insurance policy and an account to help him care for Elena. To my surprise, he agreed to all of this without consulting me. I pointed this out, and he said we've only been together 6 months, so I asked if he didn't feel too young for all this. He said sort of, but to do it for Elena. Without further discussion, he subleased his apartment and moved in with Sandra and Elena. Saturday, I stopped by to pick up Malcolm for lunch. He hadn't returned from work yet, so I was waiting with Sandra. We were making small talk and she mentioned how grateful she was for Malcolm and that he was a sweet boy. I asked if he was really her only option. I mentioned his mom and Sandra said Elena's losing enough. She doesn't want to force her to move abroad on top of everything. She also doesn't feel right asking Malcolm's mom to move back. I said I found the whole thing a little selfish. Malcolm is only 22. He shouldn't be tied down raising a child. Sandra got defensive and said she wished she didn't have to ask him. Plus he said yes. I asked what else was he supposed to say. Sandra told me I was upsetting her and asked me to leave. Malcolm called me later, screaming at me. He said that I upset Sandra. I said I was trying to defend him and point out options she may not have thought of. Malcolm told me to butt out and to get on board with this or walk away, and hasn't spoken to me since. I saw Elena at the mall on Sunday and she just ignored me. My mom told me I screwed up big time. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. I swear to God, if I see one anti-A on this thread, I'll lose my faith in humanity. You should listen to your mother. Sounds like she's a smart woman. Malcolm got lucky. He just got a glimpse into your soul when you let your mask slip. It is twisted under there. And cruel. For God's sake, harassing a dying woman? Really? And shameless about it no less. Lucky for him he saw that early on and hasn't spent years of his life with you. I'm genuinely confused why he hasn't made a clean break yet. Maybe he has and just can't be bothered to inform you. It's one thing for the OP to break up with Malcolm because she feels too young to help raise a child or be in a relationship with someone raising a child. But what an a-hole to think she has the right to interfere after just 6 months of dating. I think he has dumped her. I suspect get on board with this or walk away meant that if she didn't call with an apology, he was assuming she was walking away. You're the a-hole. You've been seeing him for a few months. That is his sister. It's not up to you to decide it is selfish for a dying mother to ask family to become a guardian. Honestly, you are not only selfish, you are asking a family you barely know to uproot a child who is going to lose her mother, to move that child abroad so that you can have your boyfriend all to yourself. Selfish, entitled, and arrogant all in one move. Fact is, this mother has a death sentence. She's not going to be around. He's stepping up. And it has absolutely nothing to do with you if he does step up. I'd be proud of someone stepping up at that age. Want to support them with it. The fact you don't shows so much selfishness. A 6-month relationship is not more important than his little sister who is going to lose her mother. Next story. Am I the a-hole for resenting that my sister was cruel about my pregnancy but is celebrating our sister's pregnancy? This involves me, 26 female, and my sisters Abby, 28 female, and Megan, 31 female. I had a baby at 16, which I know isn't great. But accidents happen, right? I do not think I was a bad person for this happening. I took responsibility and was committed to raising my son and being a good mom. My parents supported me as best as they could by babysitting and helping with finances, even though that came from my college fund. However, Megan, who was still in college but still living at home, made it clear that she was not supportive. She said she would not babysit or even watch my son if I needed to shower. She said she wasn't going to suffer for my mistake, which hurt me so much. Abby babysat for me sometimes and was happy to watch my son when I needed a rest. I badly wanted a baby shower and to feel celebrated even in a small way, but my parents said they could not help as they were stressed about the situation. I didn't have many friends, so I asked Abby and Megan. Abby was sympathetic, but Megan said she wouldn't help out at all. She told me that a teen pregnancy was not something to be celebrated. Abby just kind of followed what she said, and I ended up never getting a baby shower. I always kind of regret that because I doubt I'll have another child. Now I'm doing okay. I graduated from community college. I have an apartment where I live with my son, and I have a good co-parenting relationship with his dad. Abby announced her pregnancy some time ago, and her baby shower was this weekend. Of course I went. She made a little speech and thanked Aunt Megan for organizing the entire thing. Megan was so bubbly and happy and said how excited she was for Abby's baby. I got upset and quietly left to not make a scene. Megan came inside and asked what was up. I told her that I was hurt that she would do all this for Abby but nothing for me. She awkwardly said they were two different situations and I shouldn't make this a big deal in Abby's day. We got into it, and I ended up leaving early and Abby called to find out what was going on. I told her, and she felt pretty bad. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. No a-holes here. I hovered between that and not the a-hole, but went with no a-holes here because, while I think you are well within your rights to feel upset about it, 21-year-old Megan and 31-year-old Megan are probably very different people. You just can't fairly compare her actions as a college student to her actions as an adult. If Megan is still giving you grief today and not stepping into the Aunt Megan role for your son, then I changed my response to not the a-hole. Thank you. Honestly, she has not really been an aunt to him. She does get him birthday and Christmas gifts. That will make conversation with him when we're all together, but doesn't really try to hang out with him or talk to him on her own. Abby's an actual aunt to him, and that she will take him out sometimes, just them. If she's already treating unborn baby as a blessing and celebrating it but is distant to her nephew, the favoritism is going to be very obvious later. No a-holes here. I am sorry that you missed out on so much excitement. Even when times are challenging, you still want milestones celebrated. Unfortunately, there are consequences to all actions and neither you or your sisters are in the same place now as you were then. Having a baby at 16 is extremely different than 28. And throwing a baby shower is something a 31-year-old does, not a college student focused on schoolwork. Your son is not a mistake. But getting pregnant was an accident. Sometimes it's hard to celebrate accidents. All you can do now is focus on the good you have. This entirely. Teen pregnancy is different than adult pregnancy, and college student aunts are different than adult aunts. Especially if said student is aware she'll be sharing her home with a baby, since Opie said Megan was also living at home while studying. She even might have felt she was punished for Opie's choices. We're always more judgmental about things that directly affect us after all. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling a girl just because she had a crappy husband doesn't mean everyone is? I, 36 male, met my wife when we were 14, started dating at 16, and still together now. I know that doesn't always work for people, but it worked for us. This weekend, I was hanging out at a friend's house with a bunch of people. There was a girl there who is a friend of one of my friend's girlfriend. We'll call her Jane. I don't know her that well, but I see her around often because we are in the same friend circle. Drinks were flowing, and somehow the topic came up about how many person everyone has slept with. Jane was shocked when I mentioned I had only slept with one person. Context: Jane also married her high school sweetheart. They broke up when she found out that he had basically cheated the whole relationship with multiple women. One of his piss-poor excuses was that he hadn't had a chance to have fun or play the field yet before settling down. Anyway, she couldn't believe I have only slept with my wife, and said that I must have cheated. I told her even if I had, why would I admit it? I've been with my wife since we were 16. Admitting to it would mean admitting I have cheated, which I haven't. And in response to that, she just said that must mean that I have and I'm lying about it. At this point, I am getting annoyed because she's straight up accusing me of being unfaithful. She said she knows from experience how unlikely it is. That's when I said that just because her husband was crappy doesn't mean we all are. She just mumbled a whatever and was quiet for the rest of the night. I was talking to my friend the next day who said her girlfriend told him how upset Jane got over that. She apparently said that I know what she has been through and could have been more understanding. I said I understand what she's been through, but she doesn't need to put her issues on me and basically accuse me of cheating. My friend said he understood, but probably would have been best to just leave it. Am I the a-hole? Nope, not the a-hole, but Jane sure is. She pushed the issue. You shut it down and now she's butthurt. Too bad, so sad. Not your monkeys, not your circus. You don't owe her an apology, and your friend needs to shut up. I mean, my friend was mainly just echoing what his girlfriend was saying. I don't think he cares either way. Maybe not, but either way, he needs to shut up. He's wrong, his girlfriend is wrong, Jane is wrong. They're all a-holes here and you are not. Not the a-hole. Some people have a romantic partner their whole lives. Jane may have had a rough time, but her projecting that onto Opie and trying to accuse him of cheating was not cool. She should apologize to him, and not the other way around. Not the a-hole. Jane kept accusing you of cheating in public. No, basically about it, and you shut that down. You wouldn't have had to do that if she hadn't brought up and pressed the issue. How could you have been more understanding or left it without leaving her accusation hanging unaddressed? The general consensus seems to be that I could have just denied it, that I didn't have to bring up her experience. My response to that was that I did deny it, but she didn't drop it until I mentioned her ex-husband. Mission accomplished if you ask me. Exactly. You didn't stir anything up. She did by continuing to push. She refused to drop it until she got an answer she didn't like. People like your friend are the worst. They want to score points as peacekeepers, but always at your expense and never their own. If they're not willing to defend you, then they can shut up about you defending yourself. Instead, they want you to tie your arms behind your back so you're easier to hit. That's toxic just for your information. You're allowed to defend yourself with the same energy being thrown at you, especially after you first tried to defuse the situation. Stealing this because I always have a hard time explaining that people are too cowardly to stick up for someone, then they don't get a say in how that someone sticks up for themselves, especially if they aren't in the wrong. Am I the a-hole for leaving my wedding with my wife? Title is confusing, so I will try to explain it as better as I can. I'm male 29, have been with my girlfriend, female 29, for about 6 years. We love each other very much and have a fulfilling relationship. We are, however, a very introverted couple, so when we discussed marriage, we were both on the idea that we didn't want a traditional wedding or a wedding at all. We want to go to a courthouse by ourselves, no friends or family, sign the paper and then go to our honeymoon. In our country, this is very weird since weddings are expected to be massive, over the top, and every member of the family must be invited disregarding your level of closeness with them. We got engaged in relative secret since we were already living together and shared the information with our closest family. When they asked for our plans and we told them, they didn't take it very well, and a lot of fights began with both families, but especially with my mother and mother-in-law, who would not tolerate a marriage that did involve the Catholic Church. After a few months of fighting, and since there's a pandemic going on, we went ahead with our plans and got married by ourselves and went on a month-long stay in a secluded cabin. When we returned, suddenly all bad blood with our parents and extended family was magically gone, and both my mother and mother-in-law were again very friendly as if nothing ever happened. After about 3 days since we came back, my mother-in-law invited us to the wedding of one of her friends as proof that all was forgotten. She said she would pick us up so that we wouldn't get lost, which was weird, but we didn't suspect anything. The day of the wedding, we arrived at the location and see that everything is still being put up, so we figured we were a bit early and should help. But then I saw my family and some of my in-laws. Turns out, it was our wedding, and they had planned it to be a surprise. They already had a dress, church, food, DJ, everything. Of course, we were shocked, as we were very vocal that this is not something we wanted. Then they told us that since we were driven there, we wouldn't be able to leave and should just be grateful. Here, the story becomes too long to fit the 3,000 limit, so to summarize, we called a friend to pick us up and we left. Of course, both families are super angry at us and constantly call us to tell us how ungrateful and disrespectful we are. At first, I thought we were right to leave, as we gave our reasons for not wanting a wedding, and especially a religious ceremony. But we've been told they invited over 200 people, and felt very humiliated when everyone arrived and we weren't there. So now we are doubting, and there's nothing like asking strangers for judgment. So Reddit, am I, we, the a-holes? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They basically kidnapped you to perform for them. You have every right to leave. That's exactly what we felt. She drove us there, so we would have to stay. Basically, we were taken as hostages. This story is so insane that I'm questioning that it's real or not. How can people be so self-absorbed they show no regards for others like this? They treated you like puppets. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. They had no right to do that. I told them you didn't want this, and were hoping to embarrass / guilt / shame / trap you into doing it anyway. They're upset that you put them in an uncomfortable position. If that's exactly what they'd planned for you, I'm glad you guys stood up to them as a team. Thank you. Ever since we announced our plans, the guilt trips and manipulation has been over the top. They threw you a surprise wedding? Not the a-hole. If any part of this is true, they are crazy as hell and you should cut contact. Although uncommon in my country and region, this type of surprise wedding is not unheard of. But it mostly happens when people get pregnant or if both families are super conservative and find out that intercourse has been happening. Since this wasn't our case, we didn't suspect anything, but I can see why it would be hard to believe. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting a child-free wedding on my niece's birthday? So me, 28 female, and future hubby are doing the damn thing, hopefully, this year in August. We have been engaged since 2019 and together since 2012, so this has been a long time coming. For some background, I have 10 siblings, I am the youngest, and combined, they have 30 children, 20 of which are aged between 4 to 17 years. For our big day, me and my fiancé chose a date, but not the year luckily, when we got engaged. And it has been meaningful for us. It is actually my mother's birthday. So our first call was to my mom to ask her permission if she would be okay with us having our wedding on her birthday at some point. To our delight, she was super happy with the idea, so that's that. In addition, one of my sister's child, 8 years old, has her birthday on the same day. So our next call was actually to her to tell her that we would like to choose that date. And the wedding will most likely be child-free because we could never afford to invite everyone. Back then, she was like, yeah, do whatever, you didn't even have to call to ask. So now coming back today, the invitations have been sent and she got hers today. And I get a call from her. Sis, So I wanted to make sure that the sentence, please leave your children home, does not extend to your relatives, right? Me. This extends to all of our invited guests, family, and friends alike. Sis. But I am your sister. Why should we leave them home? Besides, I have promised XY all this time that we will be going to have a great dance party at your wedding for her birthday. Me. I am sorry, but I told you that beforehand when I asked about the dates as well. We cannot afford to invite so many guests. Think how many children there would be. Sis. No, but you should make an exception because it is her birthday. And I promised we will go. I know some of my other siblings are mad about the child-free thing as well, and we are getting a lot of heat for it. My fiancé has a very small family, so I feel bad constantly that mine is so huge. We just want a cool party with just close relatives and friends, and not to mention COVID has set quite the limit. So am I the a-hole because I knew my chosen wedding date was a someone's child birthday, and I knew that I wanted to have a child-free wedding, and now I do not want to make an exception? Not the a-hole. You called to ask and got permission. Your sister is the a-hole for backtracking. Exceptions will cause drama with other parents. I totally agree as long as OP is fine with a lot of her family members declining the invitation. They don't have a right to be mad, but they do have a right to stay home. Why would a lot decline? My parents used to attend all kinds of events that were child-free. I could understand if the one sister did because it's her kid's birthday, but why would others? Not a a-hole. This is a date that is special to you. You told her what you were doing. She chose to promise her daughter something that, frankly, wasn't in her control. Aside from the fact that she blatantly disregarded what you already told her. There is nothing wrong with child-free weddings. Your family can suck it up and get over it. I was not invited to weddings as a child. This could be regional/country specific. But why does it seem people freak out now when their children are not included? Most people getting married do not have their own children, and you are putting more pressure on them when you want this many children included. Also, the last place I would want to be on my 8th birthday is a wedding. I get it. It puts the parents in a tricky spot that they're either not with their daughter on one of her birthdays or they miss one of their siblings' weddings. Since there are 30 little nibblings running around, they could probably hire a group of teens to watch all of them at the same time, instead of each individual family hiring a babysitter. This is also assuming that their other side of the family cannot watch them for one evening. Not the a-hole. There's nothing wrong with wanting a child-free wedding. And if you have 30 nibblings, it's going to be a decent likelihood that there will be a birthday. If your sibling wants to stay with their kids instead, that's their choice. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to celebrate during the day, just not at your wedding. Think about this. There are 52 weeks a year, or roughly 52 weekends. There is mom, 11 kids, plus spouses/partners, and 30 grandkids. Excluding spouses/partners, that is 42 birthdays. Opie's family is averaging one birthday a week. Assuming everyone has a partner now, you're up to 53 birthdays. I think Opie is screwed on trying to find a weekend where someone can't lay claim that it is so-and-so's birthday or birthday weekend. Edit. Thank you all for your thoughts. When choosing a date, we went with my mother's opinion, and with my sister telling us we shouldn't have even asked her about it. Reading the comments, I do realize that not being a parent myself didn't think about a few things. I also did some math, and there is a birthday/anniversary of someone else in every 7.8 days in my family. So I was screwed from the start. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to sign a post-nuptial agreement in exchange for a down payment? My 27 male, wife 27 female, and I got married over COVID and thus had a super small wedding. Only immediate family came, and it was a 12-person wedding for only about $2,000 total. Her parents paid for her dress, I paid everything else. My wife and I are now house hunting, and the market is ridiculous right now. My in-laws are pretty financially comfortable and offered to gift us a 20% down payment since they didn't have to pay for a wedding. But they want me to sign a post-nuptial agreement, stating that if we were to divorce, all the equity from their gift would go to my wife versus split 50-50. I told them no thanks. I don't want any gifts with strings attached. Neither of us wanted a prenup, so I don't want a post-nuptial agreement either. I make about 50% more than the wife and knew there was some risk. but that's not the kind of marriage I want. My wife agreed. We just lost another house bid, and my wife brought up how we could be more aggressive if we accepted her parents' help. I told her my stance hasn't changed. If they removed a caveat, I will, but I don't want them to have any involvement like that, and I want to keep our marriage attorney-free. She gets it, but is getting more antsy about not winning any housing bids, and thinks I should reconsider. Her brother, who I know pretty well, also is now trying to get me to agree to it, saying I should put aside my pride so we can get a better housing for our future family. Planning to have kids soon. But I just feel like they'll breed resentment and cause drama that I don't want in our marriage. Edit. It's not like we'd be homeless without their support. I make a good living and she does okay. It's just the housing market is pretty crazy right now, and we live in an expensive housing market. I don't want a loan from them, even if zero interest. We don't want more debt than we'd originally be planning to take on with our current budget. I'm not trying to negotiate a postnup to be more beneficial to me. The whole point is that we both agree to a marriage without getting lawyers involved, which is a binary matter here. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hull. Gifts with strings are never a good idea. You are right to avoid this. Agreeing to it being a loan with an interest rate to be paid off when the property sells would make more sense, but all the future equity is unfair and inequitable. Unless she makes all the payments and pays all the expenses. No a-holes here. I totally understand all the different sides of this issue, honestly. You don't like the idea of the strings, but also probably they're doubting the long-term validity of your relationship. Your in-laws don't like the idea of a possible divorce in just a couple months would entitle you to half of their hard-earned money. Your wife doesn't like being in the middle and wants to get a house ASAP. As a parent, I would probably also like a post-nuptial agreement for a gift of a significant amount of money. But there is a reasonable solution that all of you are overlooking. Get a post-nuptial agreement that expires in X years. This would solve both their concerns and also have a null impact on your relationship, assuming that you are in it for the long haul anyway. It's not about how many years it would apply. We went into our engagement with me making significantly more, and I likely always will. I knew going into the marriage that divorce is possible, but we both agreed to jump into the marriage with 2 feet. I'm not saying, oh well, I should receive the majority of equity for mortgage payments then, because I'm paying a bigger portion of it. We didn't want a lawyer-involved marriage in general, which is pretty binary to me. That's not a postnup. If your in-laws want to give you 20% down, you and your wife can drop a contract with her parents stating that if you divorce, you and your wife will give her parents their 20% back. Or you could treat it as a second mortgage loan from them. It's obviously not a gift if they want the money back. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole? My mother gave me an ultimatum last night regarding my wedding. Background: my older brother is an embarrassment. He's racist, awkward, weird, a drunk, and is also 16 years my senior. My partner and I got engaged on New Year's Eve. Our original plan was to do a city hall wedding, then bop off to our honeymoon. Unfortunately, we decided to have a small party with family and best friends. The problem: I asked my mother not to have my brother at the wedding. At no time has any member of my family supported me this past year. I have earned 2 additional accreditations in my field, teaching, taken multiple foreign language classes, published 2 books through my small press publishing company, and have assumed the role of financial guide for my mother after my dad passed away 2 years ago. My brother and sister have done nothing to show support for me. My brother never misses an opportunity to insult my weight. Had weight loss surgery in 2018 and have lost a ton, but he still attacks me about it. And never misses an opportunity to call me a fat, which is obviously disgusting. My mother initially said okay to my request to not have my brother at my wedding. Then yesterday, she gave me an ultimatum and said if he isn't invited, then she won't come. My sister won't come, my aunt won't come, and my niece and nephew won't come. They're 8. I plan to talk to my therapist about this tonight, but I'm not a a-hole. I live with my mother and brother. Not a a-hole. When someone says I won't come to your wedding, or anything else for that matter, if you don't do X, Y, or Z, the response should be nothing other than, that's a pity, you'll miss a great day. Don't argue or try reason. They rarely mean it. They just want their way. Leave them be and don't engage. She'll go, and frankly if she doesn't, then screw her. Easy for me to say I appreciate. thank you. If I were you, I would stop helping your family out. You did what you could to help them, but it seems like they're a negative force in your life. You need to surround yourself with people who will reciprocate your support and positivity, not soak it up like a sponge. Not today, Hall. And your reply to her should be simple. That's too bad. You will be missed. And then drop it. Do not discuss it further. That's too bad. You will be missed. Are they really going to be missed? Anyway, not today, Hall. Wedding day is a day of love and happiness. There's no place for people who doesn't provide any of those things. Not today, Hall. Okay, see you when we get back from the honeymoon. And move out. Not today, Hall. Your wedding. Call her bluff. And good luck with the wedding. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother she is the reason why I don't want a relationship with my siblings? I, 30 male, have 3 younger half-siblings through my mom. Because my mom had primary custody, I grew up with them and I was miserable because my mom has the siblings always share mentality, and I would be punished if I didn't want to. This was mainly an issue because only 2 of us have the same father, and whenever each of dads gave us something and the others wanted it, we would be expected to share. And because my dad was the most active in being a parent and had more money, my siblings always went after my stuff, sometimes without even asking, and I could never do anything about it without getting punished. There were times I didn't even get to play or use the things that my dad gave me because it wasn't my turn, and if my siblings broke or damaged it, my mom would shrug it off because things happen, and to just tell my dad to buy me a new one. This made me so angry, because not only did I feel like I could never have anything nice for myself, but my dad couldn't always afford to get me a replacement. He had more money than the other dads, but he wasn't rich. I remember being my happiest when I was with my dad and wanted to stay, but because he lived in another state and had a crazy work schedule, I could only be with him in the summers. Not only that, but I was made to feel bad if I ever voiced my displeasure living with my mom, because she was a single mom trying her best, and I was always provided for and never physically harmed, so I should just be grateful. It wasn't until I was 16 that my dad became fully established enough in his career that he was able to have a more flexible schedule, and was even able to move closer to me. He said that I was now at an age where I could decide, and said that he would welcome me with open arms. So when I went to visit him during a long weekend, I just never went back. It wasn't necessarily planned and my mom was upset, but I just didn't want to go back and my dad didn't make me. After that, I've been in low contact with my maternal side, only really seeing them on Thanksgiving, and for years, they swore my dad turned me against them. One day, my mom was complaining about how low down my father was, and something in me broke. I told her that my dad may not have been perfect, but he was the better parent because he respected my autonomy, and that it was her fault I didn't care about having a relationship with her other kids, while I'm close to my older sister through my dad. Now I'm getting chewed out. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. A woman who failed to ensure her kids respected each other's boundaries is complaining that the kid who was regularly on the losing end has set up a boundary? It's not surprising. Not the a-hole. This is so beautifully and eloquently put. I have nothing to add except my appreciation for the sentence. Not the a-hole. She attacked your father, a figure you respect, and you defended him and turned the attack on her. If she did not want her poor parenting brought up, she should not have attacked another parent. The funny thing is, in some divorces that have been bitter, the more bitter one, the one who happily badmouths the other will put a clause in the custody or divorce agreement that prevents their ex from saying a bad word about them to their kids. Not the a-hole. The thing is, when kids are forced to share, they usually start to resent the idea. But if kids are left to themselves, they usually end up just sharing what they have naturally. I don't remember my mom forcing me or my sister or brother to share their toys with me. We'd have a few toys that were ours, and we could play alone. But that usually got boring, so we'd find a sibling and they'd join in. My brother had a huge set of Lego, so when I brought that out, we'd all work together to build a town or some racetrack. We never had to share our bikes and had to ask the other sibling if a friend could use it. So I don't have big issues with sharing things if I left to my own devices. I was a nanny for several years and used the same method. And 9 out of 10 times the kids would start out playing alone, then end up playing together with most toys. Me and my brothers had limited time allowed to play video games. We all naturally gravitated towards multiplayer games because if I used my time to play with them and they used theirs to play with me, we wound up getting to play 3 times as long. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I won't be at her wedding? 18 months ago, My dad died, and then 9-ish months ago, my mom and my uncle, dad's brother, started dating each other. I, a 17 female, will be 18 when they get married, and I decided pretty much from the start of their relationship that I wouldn't play a part in it. My older sisters both refuse to speak to our mom or uncle anymore, and they won't be going to the wedding either. But since I'm still technically a minor now, my mom thinks she can still make me go. She either doesn't remember that I will have already turned 18 when the wedding happens, or she just doesn't care. Either way, she keeps trying to engage with me on the wedding, has cried over minded my sister's lack of involvement, and how she hates being punished for being happy, how dad would want this for her. My oldest sister told her dad would be disgusted that his own brother and wife were shacking up. Our dad finds that kind of relationship weird, and we knew that for a long time. He was a vocal commenter when watching a movie or TV series. I think it's both knowing that my dad would hate it, knowing my mom has admitted to have feelings for my uncle when she was married to my dad, and the fact it has happened so fast that just makes it feel so disrespectful. I suspect my uncle had feelings for my mom long before this too, but he would never confirm that. So anyway, mom was bringing it up, and 3 nights ago I was like, screw this. She gets to hear again that I won't be there, and I would never be there. It turned into a fight, and she told me that she deserves better. My grandparents got involved because my mom told them about it, and they said I am a disrespectful little ungrateful brat. That mom deserves happiness, and no matter how less time it took, my dad is dead, and his memory is not more important than the wants/needs/feelings of the living. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Buy the happy couple a copy of Hamlet, and ask them if they're sure they want you involved. To be at the wedding or not to be at the wedding? That is the question. And the answer is no. Buzz off. Not the a-hole. The ick factor is high here. Were they having a relationship behind your dad's back? Not your circus, not your monkeys. Go have a lovely day out with your sisters on their big day. It definitely sounds like it, and the last sentence feels very much like the grandparents knew and felt she would be happier with your uncle rather than your dad. His memory is not more important than the wants/needs/feelings of the living. How about the wants/needs/feelings of their very much living grandchildren? I really hate your grandparents just reading this. You are grieving the loss of your father, and they're insulting you for perfectly understandable feelings. What horrid people they must be to not see or care about your pain. Your mother is entitled to find love and happiness again, yes. You and your sisters are equally entitled to have complicated feelings, need more time, and be flat out angry about the particular way your mom has moved forward with her life. Not to mention be upset that your mom is trying to bully and guilt you into suppressing your own emotions. Are your sisters in a position where you could move in with them? Or any other sane relatives? I think you need a plan for leaving your mom's house. Not stay home. Not stay home. Can you live with your sisters? I wish. In a couple of months, I would probably pack up and move to my oldest sisters. I want to wait until mom can't do much about it though, since my sister is a recent college graduate and she doesn't need my mom hauling her to court over custody matters. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for getting upset and asking my mom to pick me up? This happened last Friday night when I, 14 female, went to my dad's for visitation. My dad lives with his wife and my stepbrother who is my age, and my half-brother. We each have our own bedrooms, but I have learned that I can't really keep anything over there because it just disappears. Even hygiene products or extra pair of underwear disappear. I don't know what happens to them, and no one ever seems to know, but they get mad when I get mad that stuff I take is gone. I hate going over there because their house is always freezing cold. Even in the summer, my dad has the AC cranked. I told my mom this a few weeks ago, and she gave me an extra blanket to put on my bed at my dad's, and I hid it in my overnight bag. She just told me to make my bed there like normal, and no one would even notice it was on there and it wouldn't be bothered. Last Friday night, I got to my dad's, and when it was time to go to bed, the blanket was gone. I asked where it went, and my dad said my stepbrother was cold a few nights before, and took it off my bed to give to him. I was so mad. I said that I'm tired of never feeling like I am at home there because I can't have anything that belongs to me. My dad said, "You are a selfish brat, and in this family, we share." But he went and got the blanket from my stepbrother's room, and it was really gross. Like body fluids gross. I'm not stupid. I know it was on there. I was even more mad, and my dad just said to wash it and get over it. But it was like 11 p.m., and I had a soccer tournament the next morning early. so I didn't want to stay up and wash it, or lay awake shivering all night. My dad and stepmom went to bed, so I called my mom, told her what happened, and she picked me up. My dad didn't even notice I was gone until 2 the next afternoon, when he called yelling at me for leaving because he needed a babysitter for my baby half-brother. I told this to my friends, and half thinks I'm the a-hole for leaving and getting mad over a blanket, while the other half thinks I'm not the a-hole. For what it's worth, I did leave a note. My dad didn't read it, and the visitation is not a formal legal agreement. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You should be able to expect a reasonable amount of privacy at your dad's. No wonder you don't like going over there if you can't have a basic level of respect. If your dad was so concerned about your stepbrother, you should have given him a blanket off his bed. That is what parents do, especially if kids are cold because of their decision to keep the AC up. Your dad owes you an apology, and a lock on your door which only you have the key to. Especially if you can't even keep underwear over there without them going missing. As a mom, I don't even want to imagine WTF is happening to them. Yeah, the underwear part really bothers me as well. To me, it says run away screaming. Not today home. The whole post was a clear not today home, because you should be able to feel welcome at your home, and that right was taken away by your possessions being stolen. Your dad was being a a-hole by claiming in this family we share, which is obviously a one-sided concept. And to top it all off, he admits that he was going to force you to babysit, displaying his true ulterior motives. Glad you're back with your mom now. The reason why the visitation is informal in the first place is because he hasn't really been very involved in my life until he remarried, and his wife wants a big happy family, and he wants a babysitter. Up until a year ago, I was mostly spending every other weekend with his parents who actually do want to spend time with me. Not stay home. Your underwear goes missing and your stepbrother whacked off into your blanket? That's creepy. And when you complain about it, you are the problem. Something is not right in that house. Don't leave anything there ever. And I wouldn't want you to be alone with a stepbrother, frankly. That your dad sees no problem here is also a problem. You are not the a-hole. I avoid my stepbrother at all costs. Him and his friend accidentally walked in on me showering one day, and I know I locked the bathroom door because it makes my skin crawl. But when I went to my dad and stepmom about it, they got mad at me for calling my stepbrother a perv, and said I must not have locked the door, and it's natural to be curious anyway. But it clearly wasn't an accident if he pulled back the curtain, so they try to frame it as a prank. Okay, sure. Really funny. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my stepson out to his mother's? My first husband died when my biological son, 14 male Chris, was 7. I kept a box of precious mementos including his class ring that I gave to Chris. It means a lot to him, and he always wears it on a necklace, only taking it off at night to sleep. I eventually remarried when Chris was 10 to his stepdad, Martin, and he gained a brother, Torin, 16 male. Martin has joint custody with his ex, but Torin spent more time with us after the marriage. Now, me and Torin don't have the best relationship. Try as I might, he's never taken to me and has never liked me, and has told me to my face that I can't replace his mom, and sometimes he's rude to me. Things aren't that great between him and Chris either, as they are always arguing and Torin likes to pick on Chris. There's also been a few times Torin was supposed to make sure Chris got home from football practice, but instead forgot and left Chris stranded without telling anyone, and he's been forced to walk home a few times because of it. Luckily, we don't live too far from the school, but it's still almost an hour-and-a-half walk. A lot of times, Martin lets these things slide and tells me it's just a normal brother's thing, or that Torin is still getting used to me. And I usually leave it alone, until recently. In the last week, Chris lost his dad's ring. We looked for it everywhere and couldn't find it. Chris has been in literal tears since he lost it. Today after school, Torin and his boyfriend were hanging out outside and it was getting late. So I went outside to tell him it was time for his boyfriend to go home. Torin looked shocked when I came outside, and I immediately noticed why, because Torin's boyfriend was wearing my late husband's ring. Torin has apparently stolen it and given it to his boyfriend. When I confronted them, his boyfriend didn't even know it wasn't Torin's, and Torin had told him it was his dad's. Pissed, I couldn't deal with this any longer, and since his dad wasn't home to deal with him, Martin's away on a business trip. I told him to pack his things and I dropped him off at his mom's house. His dad called an hour ago saying I was being too hard on him, and his mom thinks I'm overstepping and doing more than necessary. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I don't think this is an overreaction at all. His almost adult son has told you that he doesn't look at you as a stepmother or authority figure. You took him to someone who he does see that way. Please tell me you got the ring back. I don't think you went far enough. I would have gotten the police involved. P.S. Please keep that box of precious mementos secure in a safety deposit box or something, in case Torrin decides to retaliate. I think it's better Son has a lockbox/safe in his own room so he doesn't feel it's not his home, if that makes sense. Not being able to keep his father's things with him might make him start thinking about when he gets his own place, / stop thinking of where he is as a homely place he can relax. Obviously, living with someone who's bullying him is already a problem, but having to lock valuables away won't help. But at least he'll have them near him and be able to look whenever. Not today, home. He stole your son's ring knowing it was important and gave it away to someone else. He is the a-hole. You didn't mistreat him, but sent him to his mother's place. It's not a harsh punishment at all to remove him so he doesn't bully your son. You have a right to hold him accountable as his guardian of the moment. If you are not his guardian, then you were also right to send him to his mom. You have more problems than his stealing and behavior if your husband doesn't think anything wrong happened, or that there shouldn't be any serious consequences for disrespecting his stepbrother. He doesn't respect or care about your son. Absolutely not the a-hole, but your husband is the a-hole for not stepping up and letting it get to this point. Your son should be just as much as his now, and him having to walk an hour and a half because his stepson forgot? Unacceptable. Should have had a very serious talk with him about responsibility then. Now he's stealing from his brother, prized possessions no less, causing him great distress and thinks it's okay to give them away? A line's been crossed, and right now your son needs you to be his advocate because who knows what else he's been putting up with from him, especially at school away from supervision. Even if it means pushing back against your husband. Really feel for the kid. Edit. Both his mom and dad think you're overreacting after he desecrated your late husband's belongings? Shows exactly where he's getting it from. Wouldn't move an inch on this until there's an apology and some serious changes. Otherwise, you've got bigger problems looming.